Hello and welcome to the Self-Recording Band podcast. I'm your host, Benedikt, and I'm here with my friend and co-host, Malcolm Owen Flood. How are you, Malcolm?
Hello, I'm good, man. It's so good to be back. I have
sure.
been away for like 5 weeks at least, and it felt like a long time. It was a long time. That is a long time.
Yeah, definitely felt like one. Yeah, how are you? Like, give me
I'm
a
good.
quick update.
Yeah, it's nice being home. It was quite the adventure. I'm actually allowed to say what I was doing. I'm now
finally
aware. It was a CBC show called Canada's Ultimate Challenge, which is like a brand new reality TV series, and we just travel across the country with a bunch of athletes and Olympians and stuff, and made TV. It was pretty cool. Very fun experience. Got to go to some very cool places that I've never been to before. And all around exhausted, but happy. And trip of a lifetime. So
awesome.
Good to be back.
That sounds really, really great. But it was not the title of the show that I expected to hear. Is it something different then? Or is it just called
Okay, yeah. So this constantly confuses people because some shows I'm not allowed to say the name of until they're released, right? So the last time I went away back in... I think that was April and May. That was for The Amazing Race, which is now just started airing. So now I'm starting to post about that and actually be able to share my experiences on that. But people now think that they see those posts and think that I'm like on it right now, but that was actually months ago.
Okay, that was me too. Actually, I thought that was the thing. Okay,
that's everyone. It's not just you. It's all confusing, but.
Was it both like, I just remember the Amazing Race thing was like very challenging physically. Like, was it the same thing with the other show too?
There was a couple days that were very much so, but no, this one was more technically challenging though. We had a huge cast count, and there was a lot of audio mixers, a huge camera team, and we're all like cameras are all being fed wirelessly, and we're sending wirelessly, and there's a video village where they're receiving all of our stuff so they can kind of like live mix the show to kind of get an idea of what it will look like. It was a huge operation. In fact, I think it was the biggest budgeted reality TV show in Canada ever. Pretty sure.
Wow,
so
really?
It was a big thing and a lot of fun. Learned a ton. Need some sleep for about a month, probably.
For sure. Did you take some time off now after this whole thing? Or
kind of. I've got like a slow week here.
Yeah, okay.
So that'll be nice.
Okay, awesome. Okay. And then studio projects still like booked or things planned or what's next?
Yeah. I've got a mix for this week. When I say slow week, I've got only one song to mix, so that's nice. And then an album to master. I think that's going to be it for the week.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
So good.
How about you, Benny? Any news you need to share? It's been a while, man. Like you and I literally haven't got to catch up for that entire time I was away. I was so busy.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there was a lot that happened. It's probably too much to tell all these things in this little banter here. Mostly, it was basically work-wise. It was the same as always. Like tons of mixing, tons of coaching. A couple new things in the making. We've built an entire new editing course. I can say that already because it's finished. Like Thomas did the course, and it's amazing. It's phenomenal. Drum editing course, and there's more to come, and that side of things. And I'm pretty excited to share that. Then we're still like Mixes Unpacked 2. We already announced that. That is done now, and so we've been working on courses, we've been working on coaching and mixing. I did a ton of running. Yeah, that's basically it. And now I'm on vacation mode. For the first time this year. I'm really on like a 2 weeks vacation thing, except for this podcast recording today. This is the only thing that I'm going to do during these 2 weeks.
Good. Yeah, well earned. You work very hard, so enjoy it, buddy.
Yeah, thanks. I added you, by the way, I followed you. That's the last thing I'm going to say unrelated to this episode, but I followed you on Strava, I think, a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, you're finally on Strava. Great.
I found you there, so because we were talking about that, I don't know, half a year ago or so. So now I finally joined Strava, and now I found you. So just a heads up.
Okay, I'll follow you back. I don't think I saw that, so I will do that.
Yeah.
Great, man.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. Yeah, cool. So let's dive into today's episode, I guess. Let's see if we can still do this. I guess I assume it's like riding a bike.
It's like riding a bike, yeah. And I've got the perfect segue, because I bet before you did this vacation of yours, you had to wrap up a bunch of projects.
Yes, as always.
In order to wrap up a bunch of projects, you need to deliver your final deliverables, which is the topic of our podcast.
Exactly. That's pretty much what I did last week, like the whole week almost. Like I was wrapping up things, sending out final deliverables. Exactly, yeah. Perfect segue. Thank you.
No problem.
So today's episode is going to be about that. It's going to be about which files do you actually need and what goes where? Like which file do you need for the different platforms, streaming services, mediums? Is it one master to rule them all? Do you need different files, different formats? So, we're going to talk about this because you as a listener, you want your music to sound as good as possible, of course, on any platform. And I think you also think about being future-proof too. So you want to be ready for possible opportunities down the road. And when you wrap up your projects, when you record things and you export the final master, you want to make sure that you have everything you need so that you don't have to go back and open old sessions again in case something comes up or whatever. And a lot of people are confused about, which format they need, which sample rate, which file format even, and if there's different things needed for different platforms. So we're going to talk about that. And I think we're just going to explain how we do it, Malcolm, you and I, like what we deliver to the artists that we're working with, how we set up our mixing and mastering sessions so we are able to print all the necessary deliverables. And maybe things have changed over the years. I don't know. For me, at least, they definitely have. I delivered more things a while ago. Now I kind of simplified it. We're going to talk about all of that because I think this is one of those things where there are 100 different ways of doing it. And definitely 100 different opinions out there on the internet. If you go to forums or I'm in a couple of these mastering groups on Facebook, for example, where some people, for whatever reason, deliver dozens of different things and other people just do one, and all of them are great engineers. So I don't think there's a right or wrong way, really, but different opinions and different views. And we're going to talk about that and explain what we think really matters and what you as a DIY producer and engineer and artist need to worry about.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I guess we should clarify that when we say final deliverables, we mean what you will be receiving as the artist as the final deliverables from essentially a mastering engineer. That maybe your mixing engineer is also your mastering engineer, but whoever is finalizing the project. And now if you're doing that yourself, you still need to do the step as well.
Yes, that's what I meant. Yeah, of course. Yeah, a couple of people will not do it themselves, so you have to know what to expect or what to ask for. Depending on who you're working with, they should know that. But you never know. And then on the other hand, I was talking to the people who do it themselves, because a lot of people do it all themselves, and you need to know how to what you need to worry about and what is maybe not so important. So
absolutely,
all right.
Yeah. And there isn't just one answer, I guess, either, is what we'll discover in this too. There's different artists who will have different needs based on what they're doing.
Yes. All right. So you want to start, or should I, or how do you want to do this? I'm just going to ask you, what do you deliver to the people you master for or mix for?
On a basic song, I'm going to deliver one master version of the song, which will be a 44.1 16-bit master of the song. And I will also include an instrumental version of the song as well. Yeah,
sorry for interrupting. I'm just going to always say the file format too, because people might be confused. So we're talking WAV files
yes.
here, right?
Yes, absolutely. Yep, yeah. 44.1 16-bit WAV file. And then I will do the same bounds again, but as an instrumental version, so then the vocal is muted out of it. And then I will do the same again, but for as high res of an MP3 file as I can make. So I'll just give them essentially a 44.1 16-bit WAV file and MP3 file of both the full song as well as the instrumental version. And if there's a radio edit of the song or something, or a censored version, that as well. Every time I give those files, no matter what. Now, there is the opportunity for more upon request, if needed. I'm sure, just to throw some examples out there to get people's brains thinking about what else there also could be. There could be individual stem groups of the different groups of instruments in the track, just the drums, just the guitars, stuff like that. There could be a cappella versions. There could be karaoke versions, which is when the lead vocal's gone, but the backing vocals are still there. There could be a vocal up version. There could be there's kind of unlimited. And then that's just the alternate versions of the song. And there could also be different resolutions, Some people might want 48K 24-bit, which, makes sense, actually. I think that's probably going to be the next thing we're seeing on streaming platforms accepting. And then, you could go higher than that. If you recorded at a higher bit rate or whatever, or sample rate, you could totally deliver higher than that. But for me, 44.1 16-bit WAV file of the song and an instrumental version, which I think is crucial, as well as MP3 versions of both as well. Any questions?
Cool. Yes. I actually have questions. So the first one is,
great.
Any reason for you why you still deliver 16-bit files? A lot of people do that, and I used to do that up until half a year ago or so. But I switched to only delivering 44.1 24-bit now, because all the streaming or DistroKid and all those services, they just accept 24-bit files now, and So you automatically cover Tidal and the high-res streaming platforms and all of those things with that too. And I think no platform at this point has any problem with a 24-bit file. So I'm just interested in hearing if there's any reason for you delivering 16-bit instead of 24.
Other than just that it's like the CD quality standard. So if somebody does go that route, it's already taken care of. It's kind of a one-size-fits-all. If I can make it sound good, dither down to 16-bit while I'm doing the master, I don't really care if it's not 24-bit anymore. I'm hearing it as I'm hearing it as 16-bit by the time I deliver it, right? So
Okay.
I just kind of master it to sound how I want and don't overthink it really too much.
Okay. I'm going to get to why I switched, but that's totally cool.
No, I don't
works.
think you're wrong. I think that it makes total sense. And if there's like a change I'm going to make soon, that would be it. 100% would be going 24-bit. But as for 44.1, it's because DistroKid still doesn't accept 48, which is weird. But
yeah, I'm still with 44.1 too. Also because I'm gonna get to that when I get through my list. I'm just gonna ask you the questions first that I have for you. So
keep going.
44.1 16-bit. All right. Now, do you do the MP3 just because people requested it? I guess a lot, and then you just started to include it, or is there any reason for the MP3 version you sent
There's
out?
two reasons. One is that certain web players will only accept MP3. So people, rather than emailing me thinking that I sent them the wrong file when they're trying to use a WAV file, I just send an MP3 and be like, hey, some things will only accept this. Here you go. It's taken care of. That's one reason, just so they don't think I messed up when they're actually messing up. And then the other is that when they make their own MP3s, I found that they do a terrible job at it just because they're using like a free MP3 decoder on Google or something. And it makes a really terrible sounding file. So by me delivering a good MP3, I know that it's like I've kind of protected myself from my mix getting butchered.
Yeah,
so those are the two reasons.
Okay, that almost covered the third question that I had, which was for the MP3. Do you create a different master, or do you just use a good like algorithm to create the MP3? Like
just use the highest codec I can.
Okay,
so
because
no change.
Okay, I'm just asking because one of the things that happens when people create their own MP3s, even if they use a good codec, is that if you send out a hot master that is like peaking at, I don't know, that 0.1 true peak or something like that, if people convert that to MP3, you can still get like intersample peaks and it can clip after being converted to MP3. And that's one of the reasons why I also deliver, I delivered, I don't do it anymore, but that was one of the reasons why I sent out MP3s, just to prevent that from happening. And what I did was I just lowered my master by 0.5 dB and then created the MP3 from the actual session. And then I checked it for any intersample peaks because I don't really worry about those. And in most cases, they don't even matter. But I just don't want any red lights to come on the consumer side, and I don't want any questions on that. That just confuses people, so I just made sure that didn't happen. And I was asking if you did the same, do the same, basically.
So I'm actually just a little above 0.5 usually on all of my masters, but I'm never as high as like 0.1, for example, or 0. So it's kind of already taken care of in even my WAV file. But I also, again, I don't sweat it. Like all of my favorite songs hit red if I throw them into Pro Tools, every single one of them. So I just don't care.
True. That's true.
And so I'm totally fine with it. So the only thing I would add is why I include an instrumental version is just that I think that everybody should be ready for a potential sync opportunity of getting their song as background music in a TV show or something, and having 100%. That instrumental file is super crucial for that.
Do you create a separate master for that, or do you tweak the mix for that, or do you just mute the vocals and use the same?
Just the same again. And the only small chance could be sometimes there's like bleed of a scratch vocal in like drum room mics or something, and if I can clean that up, I will, if it's possible. But again, it's just like, here's the mixed sans vocal. And really that's usually what they're looking for, is they just want the same thing that they heard, but they want the vocals gone so that they can do whatever they want with an edit.
Yeah. That requires you, and I love that whole answer because, first of all, I love the whole answer because it's simple and it just goes to show that there's really not so much to worry about, and you're basically the one master to rule them all type of guy, and it works in most cases unless somebody asks for something else. This just will do. So that is, I think, good for people to know that it's actually not as complicated, or it doesn't have to be. And then the other thing that I want to say is, if you want to be able to do what you do, Malcolm, to just be able to mute the vocal and print the instrumental and that's it, that is only possible if you have your gain structure somewhat correct and like a proper
Yes.
like mix bus and mastering chain, because if that's all messed up, if like you do the thing that a lot of DIY people do where they put one limiter on the master and they slam that and do like 10 dB of gain reduction or something, and if you then take away the vocal, the whole balance might change. But
Yeah.
if you have like if you do loudness in small little steps and on groups, and if you do all the things properly that we explained in other episodes, your mix shouldn't change dramatically if you just mute the vocal. But if you get that wrong, then that could happen. It could mean that muting the vocal causes everything to react completely differently, and that it just doesn't work that way. So you got to be careful, and you got to get the basics right in order for that to work. So I just want to
Absolutely.
throw that out
And
there.
yeah, if you mute your vocal and you're not proud of your mix anymore, there's a problem.
Yeah. But I've seen that happen where like without the vocal, all of a sudden there's 5 dB less gain reduction or something, or some balance issue that caused you know what I mean. Like when the balancing is just off, the vocal is way too loud, and then you get it under control by heavy limiting or something, and then you mute the vocal and everything falls apart or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Now, before I ask you what you deliver, maybe I'll talk about why I don't deliver more than that by default.
Yes.
And it's because my band has never had all of our other versions requested ever. And we do a lot of sync stuff. Mm-hmm. They only ever want the instrumental one or the vocal one. Mm-hmm. But we have all these other karaoke versions and everything they ask for. But in reality, nobody's got time for that shit. If they're doing sync stuff, they're just like, they just need it quick. And, be different if they wanted it for the theme song of their episode, maybe. But in that case, you probably got time to figure it out anyways. It does cost more money to get all these alternate versions done. Some people might include them for free. I think those people are crazy because it does take a lot of time, usually, to make them as well. Backing tracks is one argument that comes up where I want all the stem groups for backing tracks, but backing tracks are actually more complicated than that. Chances are if you had all the stem groups, you're going to actually want to email your engineer to get certain parts removed so that you only have, your guitars don't have the guitar you're playing, it only has other guitars. It's never as simple as you think it is. So that never actually ends up being useful for the bands either, I find, unless, there's always an exception, I guess. But really, it was all of this extra work that was just creating a big folder of stuff that wasn't getting used, and in some cases was confusing them, where I'd get an email being like, I don't know which one my actual master is in all of these. And it's like, well, that's a problem. So I just went simple. You can't mess this up. Here's what you need. And if you need something more than this, let me know.
Yeah, perfect. Makes perfect sense. All right, cool. Thank you.
Okay, Benny, what do you deliver?
Okay, so it's similar, but also different. And I ran into some of those issues that you just described with creating all these other formats, but I tried to find a way where I could still deliver more without it taking up a lot of time or costing extra for the artist, but it's sort of a compromise. So what I'm doing is, for the longest time, I have to start differently. So for the longest time, I used to deliver a standard 44.1 16-bit WAV file, just like you, plus a high-res file that was whatever sample rate the session was in, 44.1, or if it was higher, then I just used that sample rate that it had, and a 24-bit for Tidal and these high-res platforms, just so they can get the badge. Because actually, as you said, it doesn't make a difference. It doesn't sound better if you do it properly. The 16-bit master sounds just fine. But in order for you to get the high-res, whatever, master for Tidal or, I don't know, badge on certain platforms, it has to be 24-bit. And, so I just provided that. And then also for video, YouTube, I just followed the recommendations there. I think YouTube is 44.1, 24-bit is currently what they recommend. And that also works well for a couple of other things. So long story short, I used to deliver a standard and a high-res version, which kind of already caused confusion, and I had to answer a bunch of questions with some of the people that I worked with because they didn't know what to use where. Despite me, I added documentation and I tried to make it as clear as possible, but it was still confusing. They either never read that or they still don't know. I don't know. Yeah, but anyway,
okay, hold on.
Yeah.
Here's why it's confusing: is because when people listen, they can't tell the difference between this high res and the non-high res, which again kind of negates the whole purpose, right? So it's well, if we can't literally tell by listening, even though one's labeled, why are we doing this?
Yeah. So that was what I was doing for the longest time, and everything else was just on if requested, basically. But then I kind of changed things, and I figured, well, I have this complicated, or not complicated, this complex routing going on in my mixes, like the buses that I use, the groups, and all of that. And I just thought, okay, I could just easily export the groups that I already have in one go, basically, when I print my final mixes. It's not really extra effort, and maybe those stems make sense for backing tracks or whatever. And I just figured out a way to print the master the unmastered mix if I do it in the same session. If that happens, if the mixing and mastering happens in the same session, I can print the master. The unmastered mix, I can print groups, but not like custom groups, but just like the way I have them set up in my session. So that usually means drums, like all drums, all bass, all rhythm guitars, all leads, and all vocals. So these are and then additional production or something. So these are my stems that I always have, my groups. So I export these. I can export these easily, and then I changed from delivering a standard and a high-res master to just the high-res only. So what I do now is I deliver a 44.1 24-bit master. That's the master that you're going to use for the release. That is just accepted by DistroKid and all the other platforms, and that's just what you're going to use. I include the instrumental version, just like you, which means vocals muted, and that's it. Same 24-bit, 44.1 kilohertz wave. Then I include the groups that I just mentioned. But that's kind of as you said, it's like kind of a compromise because it's not going to work for everybody, but you at least have the groups you can do. In theory, you could do remixes, or you could use them as backing tracks or practice tracks. You could put together your own, it's not perfect, but it's there, it's easy, so I provide it. And then I started to provide the unmastered mix too, just in case sometimes people want to check out a couple of different mastering engineers, and then they decide if they want to use my master or someone else's master, so I provide that too. Yeah, and I can do that pretty easily. The only risk here is you have to document it really well and explain it well to avoid confusion. So
right.
That's the only thing, because what I send to people is a folder that has a couple of different things, and I label them with bold letters like use this for release, use this for these are stems and instrumentals. This is whatever you request if you request more, and it still confuses people sometimes. But that's what I do now.
Yeah.
So. And then the MP3, I stopped doing that just because nobody really needed it anymore, I feel like. Like, for some reason, people don't ask. And maybe they converted themselves, which would not be ideal. But I asked a couple of the artists that I worked with, and nobody really needed the MP3s anymore. So I stopped doing them. And I do things like I don't worry about CD anymore. That's why I don't deliver the 16-bit master. CD is very rare. And if somebody wants to go to CD, they will tell me, and then I will create a DDP image anyways. So in that case, I will send a DDP sequence master. And if they go to vinyl, I will do a vinyl master, which is a whole different master anyways. So this is a different mastering session altogether. But if not requested, DDP and vinyl are not part of the package. What you always get is like the 24-bit WAV file, plus the groups, plus the instrumental, and the unmastered mix. That's what I deliver now.
That's great. You did remind me that the pre-master is an important thing. I do print that, but I don't send it usually. I keep it for myself, and it's more so because more and more bands are recording multiple songs over a longer period of time and then deciding later to put them together. So having that pre-master handy lets me do like an album master at a later point. So it's kind of covering that, or if they request it, at least I've got it handy.
That's a very good point that you bring up there. I'm glad you brought it up, because I almost forgot. I have to say that part of the reason why I export all these things is not just because I want to give them to people. I do this for myself too, for a archiving reason. So in case I cannot open a session anymore in 3 years, I still have my groups and stems, and I could in theory put the mix together and do some mix processing and get the same thing again. So it's not going to be perfect, but I can pretty quickly get to the mix that I had again, even if I can't open the session anymore. So that is part of the reason why I want to do this. Same for the unmastered mix. If I'm asked to do a sequence later, if they thought they're going to do a single or an EP and then they want to do a record instead, I have those and can remaster them and take that into account, because the album, as you said, the sequence and an album flow and all of that might require a different master than just doing it for a single. So that's part of it. And honestly, I just wanted to avoid having to go back to older sessions, basically, because what happened in the past when I didn't deliver those things or didn't print those things was that somebody needed an instrumental, somebody needed the drums only, somebody needed whatever, the unmastered mix. And it was always a pain to find the archive drive and then figure out if I can still open up the session, and then maybe I didn't have some plugin anymore. So I just didn't want to do that anymore. So now I just try to be future proof and try to have everything printed that I could ever need. And for like a year or so, I didn't have to open any old sessions anymore. I just had everything I need. And I feel like if somebody asks me 2 years from now and requests something, I'm pretty confident I have what they need. And this is part of the reason of all of this, because that's just the nature of how things work now. Like, I think a couple of years ago, it was just normal that engineers would be like, well, that session is over. I can't go back and can't give you that anymore because you didn't ask for it at the time. But I think nowadays people kind of expect you to be able to deliver things, and whether or not that is a good thing or whether, I don't know, but like it is possible, and I try to make that work. That's, I think, part of of the reason for it. I know there are some mixing engineers with like quite complicated ways of setting up their sessions. If you think like Andrew Seps, for example, or people like that who use a ton of parallel processing on everything. Like, I think I'm not sure, but I assume he can't easily print stems for you because everything affects everything, and it doesn't really work like that unless you request it. And there are still some engineers who do it like that, but I just think it's something people want these days, and I wanna be able to provide that. So I just do my best to have that flexibility, I think.
Right. Well, I'm glad you care. I don't care.
Yeah, and that's totally fine. And I'm not even sure if I should care. That's just a part of my, like, all the whole. A lot of people don't care about the archiving anyway either. Like, but I don't know. That's like the perfectionist part of me.
It is like, I think you're technically right. I do save all my sessions and stuff like that. I don't really feel an obligation. Like, if I lost them, I wouldn't be like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I'd be like, sorry, man. I tried to hang on to them for like 6 years for no reason other than that I wanted to try and have them for you. It's not like, we're being paid to do this. And I, we've already delivered our song is also kind of my stance, is like, I kind of gave you what I was hired to do already. And now that said, I've got multiple backups. I haven't lost anything to my knowledge. And if something did come back though, and they wanted a tweak 4 years after it was done, I wouldn't really care if I didn't have some of the plugins, because it's going to be a different thing anyways, is kind of also my opinion on it. It's like, you already have the mix file. There's no way they lost that. And if they did, that's crazy. So if we're opening up the session years after the fact, it's because we want to do something different. So if I need to choose a new compressor, I'm totally fine with that.
Yes, you're totally right. You're probably right. Yeah, and then the other thing is, I think you're right that there is not. You shouldn't feel obligated to do that. It's not part of the job. And I also want to say that I won't compromise the quality of what I'm delivering just for the flexibility. So I won't. I just want people to understand that if I feel like, I don't know, I have to do a route, I have to make a routing decision that means that, I don't know, drums and bass or whatever end up in the same group. So at this point I can't print drums and bass separately anymore. If that is what I need to do to make the mix work, then I'll do that, and then you don't get your drums only stem.
Absolutely.
Sorry, like I won't compromise that just for the flexibility. But if possible, I'll do it. But sometimes it's not. So I'm just going to give you whatever ends up being in my session, and I'm not going to customize it unless you tell me that you absolutely need this. If people are like, hey, at the end we definitely need this for backing tracks or whatever, then of course I try to make that work. But if people don't say anything like that, I'll just do whatever I have to do to make it sound great, and then I will give you whatever I can give you, but I won't compromise the sound just for the different options.
Yeah, 100% agree. Sometimes, like, it's all about delivering that mix at the end of the day, right?
Yes.
And making sure those deliverables that we are providing are our priority 100%. The extra deliverables that we're safeguarding for our own purposes, for our own kind of sanity, like you said, it's the perfectionism in you that's like, I just need to have these locked down, even though they'll probably never be used. That's really just for you. And the art, like the potentially for the artist kind of thing. But at the end of the day, all of our decisions are for those actual deliverables that we're sending to the client.
100%. And it's also math in my case, because I really did the math, and I looked at I always track my time, and I'm like crazy like that. I want to know all the data about everything I do. And I just figured that always printing everything and having it there and then just being able to send it out if people need it is faster than not doing it and only do it occasionally when somebody asks, but then I have to go back and reopen the session. So that takes more time than just doing it if I can do it with one click. So I just do it no matter what, even if people never use it, because then I don't have to go back later if they ask. That's just faster for me. If that was like a big effort, I would do it, but like it's pretty easy with the way I set up my session. So I just do it.
That's very cool. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
That's the only thing. But again, it's probably not always a good fit. It's just whatever is in the session. But I think, long story short, the main takeaway from this whole episode is that the question that I always get from people is, do I need to create a different master for Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube and all these things? And the clear answer, in my opinion at least, is no. There are going to be mastering engineers who will tell you different things, and some people make 10 different masters for 10 different platforms. I believe, and I've really, and I just don't, it's not just something I assume, but I've done the tests. There's plugins like Streamliner where you can actually listen to the different algorithms. You can obviously print masters, upload them, and see what they, and like hear what they sound like. And I've done the tests, and to me, it sounds absolutely fine and perfect if I just do one 24-bit, 44.1 master, or even 16-bit. And if that gets uploaded to all the platforms, that just works. I don't feel the need to do anything more than that. That's my personal opinion, and that's the result of the testing that I've done. And I'm not saying I'm right, but maybe I can't hear the differences because there are mastering engineers who believe there is a difference. But I think you shouldn't overthink it, and I think you don't need a separate master for all these different platforms. I think you shouldn't care about, and this is probably a hot take still for some reason, but I think you shouldn't worry about different LUFS values or like loudness values or anything like that. You should just create the master that sounds best for the song, period, and not worry about any of those numbers and just upload it. And every single platform will do their whatever they feel like they need to do in terms of loudness normalization or anything like that. They will change that anyways every year or so. So you have little control over that. So I just wouldn't worry about any of that. I would just provide the best sounding master and let Spotify do whatever they do. And that will just work. That is just my opinion. I've delivered quiet masters and loud masters. And at the end of the day, to me, it doesn't matter if the master is the best it can sound. And then that's just fine for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like my reminder on that topic is always just control what we can't control. And we can't control if the algorithm's going to change for how something sounds on any streaming platform tomorrow. So worry about our file. If we know this file sounds exactly how we want, what happens down the stream from that is out of our control. Don't sweat it. It's still going to sound very good.
Yes, and please don't believe the whole, and I'm sure we're going to get comments on this or questions. There's going to be the minus 14 LUFS argument somewhere, 100%. That's always the case. But don't believe that because there are songs that sound perfect at like, I don't know, minus 6, and other songs sound great at minus 16. And it's not that you just don't have to worry about this, not at all. Some music sounds better if it's really dense and loud, and it's part of the energy that the song just needs. So it actually sounds worse if you make it quieter. And then there's other music that sounds worse if you make it louder, but that has nothing to do with any of the standards or numbers that those platforms give you. It just has to do with if what the song needs and if the master is like working for this type of song. So just stop thinking about that entirely. I think it just doesn't matter. Make sure it doesn't clip. Make sure it's as loud as it needs to be. And then deliver that one thing to all the platforms. That's what I believe in.
Agreed. There we go.
Yeah. All right. Perfect. Good. And then finally, don't use any. That's also something. Don't use any cheap or free like file conversion services on the internet or apps or whatever. If you need a different version for whatever reason, an MP3 or anything else, just ask your mastering engineer or mixing engineer to provide that if you don't know how to do that, because it's usually pretty easy to do. And please don't upload your master that you've put so much effort, time, and money into. Don't upload that to some Wave to MP3 converter and then use the result that you get there. That's just never a good idea.
It can be tragic.
Yes.
Yeah, and maybe one last takeaway is just that, what we described as our included deliverables is kind of similar. You're probably going to get something along those lines no matter who you work with. But there's no harm in just specifying what you were hoping to get as your deliverables when you decide to work with somebody. Just, to make sure everybody's on the same page. If you're expecting something above and beyond, make sure that's listed. Communicate. That'll go a long way.
100%. Communicate. And then one final thing that comes to mind too is like, if you're working with other people that are using your masters for, say, videos or I don't know, double check what they're doing and double check the final deliverables there too, because I can tell you how many times I've delivered a stereo 24-bit 44.1 kilohertz master to a band, and then they gave that to a video person, and then the got uploaded, and then I heard it on YouTube, and it was all mono or something like that.
Yes.
And
That's
so
a podcast episode in itself.
yeah, that happens so often. Like, really, honestly, this is just, I don't know, it's ridiculous how often that happens. So please make sure that the video people embed the lossless file and they don't touch it and they use the thing that we provided. There are ways to do that. They shouldn't manipulate that. They shouldn't convert it to mono or do anything else with that. Just make sure that what we deliver ends up being in the final product. That includes video and everything else that you send out. Just double check that, please.
We're on a tangent now, but I did some research, and I think it is that Premiere Pro, for some reason, sometimes will take a stereo file and create two mono files. So because it is two mono files, it's a left and a right. But when it imports them and creates those, their pan is just by default set center. So now you've got a kind of mono mix.
Got it. Okay.
Right?
That makes sense. That's similar to if you're using ScreenFlow and you separate the audio from the video, it does the same thing. It creates two tracks and both are mono and you have to pan them left and right.
Yes.
Okay,
So it is the
sense.
software working against them in their defense, but it is unforgivable sin still. So it's got to be caught in advance.
Definitely. All right.
I will, honestly, if I've mixed your song and you're getting a music video, please send it to me. I will happily spend the time to listen to it and make sure that there's nothing going funky with the music video.
Yes, 100%. All right. Yeah, I think that's about it. And again, as always, please reach out and tell us I don't know, if there's anything that you always need when you release music that we totally forgot, or if you, I don't know, let us know. We always, of course, we're always learning and we're always open to changing things. And maybe there's a need that bands have that we haven't covered yet, or I don't know, just let us know in case that's the case. Maybe you always need a different, I don't know, a certain kind of backing track or whatever. Just let us know. Also, let us know maybe something didn't work for you in the past. Maybe you've tried to upload something and it came out, weird on some platform. Anything like that. I'm always interested in hearing those things. But I really believe that we've covered it pretty well, and that in, I don't know, 99% of all cases, the 24-bit or 16-bit 44.1 master will do.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Talk to you next week. Thank you for listening.
See you next week. Take care.
Take care.